This was meant to be the ideal celebrity romance. A famous football dynasty, a wealthy eyes, a spectacular wedding witnessed by the globe. However, behind the opulent homes, fancy gowns, and flawless Instagram photos, something has been subtly shattering for years. Finally, Brooklyn Beckham has exploded it in public, cruelly, and without hesitation. For the first time, Brooklyn and Nicola Peltz are refusing to back down in one of the most combustible family feuds in contemporary celebrity history, which began as rumors of marital discord. Let's examine what actually transpired, how it got to this point, and why the Beckham legacy might have been irreversibly altered by this feud. Brooklyn Beckham has been scrutinized all of his life. He was born into a world of celebrity, privilege, and unwavering expectations as the eldest son of David and Victoria Beckham. However, Brooklyn claims that same world gradually turned into a cave. Rumors of conflict between Brooklyn, his wife Nicola Peltz, and the Beckham family circulated for years. These rumors were frequently written off as gossip, disregarded as typical growing pains, or handled discreetly in the background. All of that came to an end when Brooklyn released a multi-part statement that shocked both insiders and fans. He claimed in it that his parents were in charge of his life, meddling in his marriage, and putting what he called brand Beckham ahead of his own happiness. Most startlingly, he stated unequivocally that he is not interested in making amends. Everything was altered by that one statement. You have to go back to April 2022 to comprehend how this reached a breaking point. The opulent wedding of Brooklyn and Nicola in Palm Beach, Florida. It appeared to be a fairy tale at first glance. Music, the Peltz family's beachside house hosted a multi-million-dollar gala with 500 guests and A-list attendees. However, there were already fissures developing behind the scenes. According to Brooklyn, the wedding dress caused the first significant rupture. He claims that Victoria Beckham first promised to create Nicola's dress but abruptly changed her mind. In the end, Nicola wore Valentino, but Brooklyn claims that the last-minute alteration created intense emotional strain at what ought to have been a happy occasion. Although the Beckham music camp never officially addressed this, contradictory reports quickly surfaced, leading to conjecture that this wasn't just a misunderstanding. It was a struggle for dominance. Then followed the wedding dance, which continues to make news to this day. Singer Marc Anthony performed on stage during the reception. Brooklyn claims that what was supposed to be his first dance with Nicola took an unexpected turn. Marc Anthony called out the name of Victoria, the most attractive woman in the room, rather than Nicola. According to Brooklyn, Nicola fled the room in tears right away. He claims that after that, Victoria danced with him in front of hundreds of guests, a humiliating and extremely uncomfortable experience. He says his wife was left sobbing off stage while he was instructed to put his hands on his mother's hips. Later, a number of witnesses characterized the situation as tense and uncomfortable, with guests unsure of how to respond. Their wedding memories were forever marred by Brooklyn's insistence. He claims that in order to recover the experience, he and Nicola later reaffirmed their vows in private. This was more than simply a dance for Brooklyn. It had symbolic meaning, indicative of boundaries being breached, control, and, in his view, his parents' refusal to let him to fully enter his own life. However, the drama surrounding the wedding was just the start. Brooklyn went further in his statement, claiming that his parents had forced him to give up the rights to his own name prior to the wedding. He asserts that this would have had an impact on his future business endeavors, his spouse, and even their offspring. Soon after, Brooklyn discreetly transformed his public persona to become Brooklyn Peltz Beckham, a move that now appears to be more of a statement of independence than a style decision. Additionally, he asserted that family support became contingent. Brooklyn claims that public appearances, social media posts, and brand-friendly experiences were increasingly important ways for the Beckham family to convey affection. Missing the fashion show, missing a public endorsement, not fitting in with the image, and all of a sudden, the distance increased. Brooklyn and Nicola have been remarkably unaffected by the criticism since making the declaration. In Malibu, the couple was seen strolling hand in hand, content, loving, and united. According to others close to them, they are relieved, even joyful, that everything is now public. According to reports, they felt that speaking up relieved a heavy emotional burden they had been carrying for years. The 26-year-old Brooklyn seems intent on creating a more sedate existence away from the Beckham spotlight. With the debut of his Cloud 23 hot sauce brand, his Cooking with Brooklyn series, and investments in lifestyle businesses independent of the family music name, he is focused on culinary content. This feels more like survival to him than rebellion. The Beckham team has been utterly silent in the interim. Brooklyn's charges have not received a direct response from David or Victoria. No public appeal for reconciliation, no statement, no reply. According to insiders, the family is upset but is exercising restraint since they know that any response could make things worse. However, the fallout has continued despite this silence. According to reports, Brooklyn blocked his parents on social media and asked that all correspondence go via legal means. His younger siblings have maintained their neutrality in public. However, minor online behavior, song selections, captions, and timing have all contributed to conjecture regarding allegiances. And there's a much bigger mystery lurking underneath it all. Is this conflict existential or merely emotional? Because togetherness, family values, and the perception of a perfect worldwide dynasty have been the cornerstones of Brand Beckham for decades. And right now, that picture is breaking in real time, and we're barely halfway through the revelations. At that point, the conflict becomes much more than just a personal one, because Brooklyn wasn't only expressing his feelings when he accused his parents of prioritizing Brand Beckham over family. One of the most meticulously built celebrity empires of the previous 25 years was under threat from him. The Beckhams developed a recipe over decades. Skill, self-control, cohesion, and total command of their public persona. Every appearance seems deliberate. Each picture appeared carefully chosen. The notion that this was more than just a well-known household was reinforced by every family interaction. It left a legacy. That storyline was completely destroyed by Brooklyn's statement. Music Brooklyn claims that the pressure to uphold that image started early. He talks about having severe anxiety as a child and being conscious all the time that his acts were brand decisions rather than just personal ones. For a long time, he complied with a family name, which was reflected in every action. He experimented with acting, modeling, and photography, but none of it seemed to work out. Critics quickly called him a Nepo baby, a term Brooklyn has publicly stated followed him around. It appeared to be privileged to the outside world. Brooklyn felt as though she was never let to fail in private. This background is important since Nicola Peltz represented something very different when she came into his life. Nicola was not raised in the Beckham machine. Despite her celebrity and affluence, she came from a family that, according to her own statements, valued independence, emotional intimacy, and solitude over appearances. Brooklyn has stated time and time again that spending time with her opened his eyes to a family life he never would have imagined. He claims there was no turning back once he seen the difference. Brooklyn's statement was one of the most emotionally charged allegations that had nothing to do with money, fame, or fashion. It had to do with dogs. According to Brooklyn, Nicola asked Victoria for assistance in finding homes for displaced animals amid the destructive wildfires in Los Angeles. He claimed that his mother declined to assist. This tidbit struck a deeper chord with many fans than the wedding turmoil. It has nothing to do with manners or ego. It had to do with empathy. It's unclear if the circumstances were more convoluted than stated, but for Brooklyn, it turned into yet another instance of emotional isolation during a time when he anticipated family harmony. This is the reason the feud is so polarizing. There are only two sides presenting radically different versions of the same story. There are no villains with black hats. The online response has been sharply divided. Some people feel a great deal of empathy for Brooklyn because they see a kid who, after years of pressure, is finally standing up for himself. They saw his acts as necessary, terrible, honest, and long overdue. Others wholeheartedly endorse David and Victoria, citing decades of opportunity, sacrifice, and popular backing. Regardless of the suffering involved, they wonder if Brooklyn's charges went too far and should never be made in public. Then there is Nicola, who has emerged as the focal point of this entire situation. She is accused by her detractors of fostering division or isolating Brooklyn. Her supporters contend that she is only being held accountable because she stands for change and because outsiders are more easily targeted than parents. On this point, Brooklyn has been clear. He maintains that he is not under Nicola's control. He actually asserts the reverse, saying that it was in his separation from his parents that ultimately brought him serenity. For him, that distinction is really important. Timing is what further complicates this problem. This isn't a young man acting rashly. Before making any public statements, Brooklyn waited years. He underlined time and time again that he made an effort to keep these issues private, but he felt compelled to speak in response to what he called the family's ongoing media falsehoods. He claims that once the boundary was passed, there was no turning back. This feels final because of that. Brooklyn did not use the phrase temporary distance when he indicated that he did not seek reconciliation. It sounded intentional, permanent, and well-chosen. For any parent, famous or not, that is a terrible statement. David Beckham, meanwhile, has only made oblique remarks regarding the matter, stressing that kids must be given the opportunity to grow and make errors. His remarks were cool, collected, and well-crafted. That self-control seems sensible to some. Others perceive it as emotionally cold. For her part, Victoria hasn't said anything in public. A silence that many see more as sadness than as a tactic. According to insiders, she is distraught by the possibility that she won't be involved in the lives of Brooklyn and Nicola's future children, which could be the most painful of all. It's anyone's guess what comes next. Time may soften this, according to some crisis experts. That as emotions subside and media interest wanes, public feuds frequently calm. They also cite other well-known family disputes that were resolved amicably. Others are less hopeful because there is no way to go back once accusations like this are made public. What millions of people have already read, discussed, and evaluated cannot be undone by a private family meal. The true tragedy in this situation is that, not the fashion politics, not the wedding dance, not even the consequences from the brand. The music of family is learning in real time. When personal suffering is made public, what happens? For now, distance is more important to Brooklyn and Nicola than preventing harm. A more subdued existence, less public appearances, and greater narrative control. Perhaps in the hopes that decency will triumph over denial, David and Victoria have chosen to remain silent. The world is left to speculate as to whether this marks the end of a chapter or the start of something much more permanent. Right, Joel. Because the repercussions don't go away quickly when a family that was built on harmony publicly splits. Everyone can finally see what was always beneath the flawless image until it breaks. A family that is passionate, flawed, and music agonizing